President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin trade barbs in TV interviews this week. As the rhetoric escalates between the two leaders, Russia pulls its top diplomat from the U.S., and Biden threatens sanctions. The House passed two immigration bills yesterday, mostly along party lines. Democrats say passing the bills is the compassionate thing to do, but Republicans are concerned it grants amnesty to criminals and would prolong the border surge. And the White House accidentally refers to the border situation as a crisis. This as reporters complain about a lack of transparency on the border. And what did John Quincy Adams have to say about America and foreign policy? Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. But before we start, let's talk about today's sponsor, award-winning children's book author Mary Clark Dalton. Today's sponsor, Mary, is a self-published author writing books for children. You can see a list of the children's books she is selling on her website at www.maryclarkdalton.com. Mary is a loving grandma herself and longs to help kids make the right decisions in life. So it is her desire that through her stories, children will learn moral values that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Her books cover a wide range of topics. Whether you're looking for inspiration, something funny, heartfelt, or educational, she's got it all. You can find out more about them on her website, so make sure you click the link in the description box below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. And a reminder, we have been demonetized for over 2 months now. That means we can't run ads, which means our ability to earn money has been taken away. So to get more content like this out, we rely on donations from you, as well as sponsors like Mary. So be sure to check out her books. I'll have the links below. Now let's kick off with a frosty relationship between the U.S. and Russia. It's now reaching a new high. President Biden called Russian President Vladimir Putin a killer in an interview with ABC earlier this week. In the same interview, Biden says Putin does not have a soul and threatens Russia with sanctions for allegedly interfering in the 2020 U.S. election. Putin responded by accusing Biden of seeing himself in the mirror when he claimed that Putin is a killer, saying it takes one to know one. He went on to wish Biden good health, adding, "I say that without any irony or joke." Some have noted, however, the idiom Putin used is much closer to, quote, "the names you call others is what you should be called." In an unusual move, Russia pulled its top diplomat from the U.S. after Biden's comments. A Russian spokesman says Biden does not want to fix U.S. relations with Russia. The Kremlin spokesman called Biden's comment very bad. He also said the statement was unprecedented in the history of U.S.-Russian ties, adding Biden clearly does not want to develop relations. He declined to say what Russia might do in response. Putin, meanwhile, challenged Biden to a public debate. He told Russian state TV, "I want to propose to President Biden to continue our discussion, but on the condition that we do it basically live, as it's called, without any delays and directly in an open, direct discussion."
I want to invite Biden to continue this discussion, but on condition that we do it live, online, without any delay, in an open, direct discussion.
He says he is willing to discuss important issues between the countries in public, adding he thinks it would be interesting for Americans and Russians. After making the challenge, Putin said he would debate with Biden as early as Friday. Biden's press secretary says Biden does not regret his comments. She says the president is not going to hold back clearly when he has concerns, whether it is with words or actions.
The president is not going to hold back clearly when he has concerns, when he has whether it is with words or actions.
Adding Biden does not have anything to report to you in terms of a future meeting. The president will, of course, be in Georgia tomorrow and quite busy. When asked what consequences Russia will face, Biden said, quote, "You will see shortly." The back and forth comes after a U.S. intelligence report alleged Moscow engaged in efforts to spread disinformation to influence the 2020 election and undermine Biden's campaign. The Kremlin denied the report. Relations are deteriorating between the two countries. The U.S. criticizes Russia for cracking down on political opponents. Russia jailed Alexei Navalny and other political opponents of Putin this year. In retaliation, the Biden administration has placed sanctions on several Russian officials and businesses earlier in March. Now from international borders, let's come closer home to the southern border. The House passed 2 immigration bills yesterday, mostly along party lines. 9 Republicans voted with Democrats in a 228 to 197 vote. H.R. 6 is also known as the Dreamers Act. It would offer a pathway to citizenship to those who enter the country illegally as children and are currently living in the U.S. The same bill would also help immigrants in the country who receive temporary migration protections. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says it has always been a pleasure for me to sing the praises of our dreamers.
It has always been a pleasure for me to sing the praises of our dreamers.
Democrats often argue that these bills are the humane way to reform immigration. But some Republicans are concerned that these bills would also give green cards to criminals, including MS-13 gang members. Some also raise concerns that it will only make the border surge grow. A Customs and Border Protection report shows multiple large groups of illegal aliens entering in Hidalgo County, Texas. The report found in February just one sector of the U.S. southern border saw at least 44,000 migrants attempting to cross illegally. Also in February, CBP agents caught over 11,000 unaccompanied minors and over 16,000 family units. They note that's an increase of over 100% in both categories. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he sent a second letter to Biden today, telling him what he learned at the border since Biden has declined to make the trip there. In the letter, McCarthy says securing our border should not be a partisan issue. The most basic function of government is to keep our citizens safe. Adding at least 13,000 migrant children are being held in custody at federal facilities, one of which is reportedly 729% over capacity. McCarthy included 5 policy recommendations from House Republicans in regards to the border crisis. They include restarting the halted border wall construction, sending a clear message to illegal immigrants that they won't gain anything from crossing the border illegally, and creating a robust COVID-19 testing program for detained illegal aliens. They are also recommending Biden bring back the Remain in Mexico program. The Trump-era policy sends migrants back to Mexico while they wait for a court to process their asylum claims. Biden had suspended that program upon taking office. Instead, he reinstated catch and release, a process whereby illegal aliens are released directly into the United States while awaiting the courts. The last recommendation is to maintain Title 41 authorities so that illegal aliens can be removed shortly after they cross the border amid the pandemic. And White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki accidentally referred to the border situation as a crisis.
That they would be partners in dealing with the crisis on the border.
The administration has carefully avoided using this term. When asked about it, Psaki corrected it to challenges on the border and said there's been no official change in terminology. This was while talking about diplomatic negotiations between Mexico and the U.S. A reporter asked about the U.S. sending vaccines to Mexico and if there were any strings attached. Psaki responded by saying there have been expectations set outside of, unrelated to, any vaccine doses or requests for them, that they would be partners in dealing with a crisis on the border. Republicans have repeatedly criticized the Biden administration for its immigration policies. They say Biden's move to rescind Trump-era immigration policies essentially served as a welcome mat for illegal immigrants. As president, Biden has undone over 12 immigration policies that President Trump had put in place to curb illegal immigration. And now, before we wrap up, let's go back to the topic of foreign policy. Let's look at the words of then Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. On July 4, 1821, Adams laid out his vision for American foreign policy. He states, "And now, friends and countrymen, if the wise and learned philosophers of the elder world, the first observers of nutation and aberration, the discoverers of maddening ether and invisible planets, the inventors of Congreve rockets and shrapnel shells, should find their hearts disposed to inquire what has America done for the benefit of mankind? Let our answer be this: America, with the same voice which spoke herself into existence as a nation, proclaimed to mankind the inextinguishable rights of human nature and the only lawful foundations of government. America and the Assembly of Nations, since her admission among them, has invariably, though often fruitlessly, held forth to them the hand of honest friendship, of equal freedom, of generous reciprocity. She has uniformly spoken among them, though often to heedless and often to disdainful ears, the language of equal liberty, of equal justice, and of equal rights. She has, in the lapse of nearly half a century, without a single exception, respected the independence of other nations while asserting and maintaining her own. She has abstained from interference in the concerns of others, even when conflict has been for principles to which she clings, as to the last vital drop that visits the heart. She has seen that probably for centuries to come, all the contests of that Akeldama, the European world, will be contests of inveterate power and emerging right. Wherever the standard of freedom and independence has been or shall be unfurled, there will her heart, her benedictions, and her prayers be. But she goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the well-wisher to the freedom and independence of all. She is the champion and vindicator only of her own. She will command the general cause by the continence of her voice and the benignant sympathy of her example. She well knows that by once enlisting under other banners than her own, were they even the banners of foreign independence, she would involve herself beyond the power of extrication in all the wars of interest and intrigue, of individual avarice, envy, and ambition, which assures the colors and usurp the standard of freedom. The fundamental maxims of her policy would insensibly change from liberty to force. She might become the dictatress of the world. She would be no longer the ruler of her own spirit. America's glory is not dominion, but liberty. Her march is the march of the mind. She has a spear and a shield, but the motto upon her shield is freedom, independence, peace. This has been her declaration. That has been, as far as her necessary intercourse with the rest of mankind would permit, her practice. Adams went on to become the 6th President of the United States, known for his diplomacy and opposition to slavery. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and have a wonderful weekend.